Shane van Gisbergen just sent a warning shot across the entire NASCAR Cup Series. And if you watched Watkins Glen, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. Because this wasn't just another road course win. No, this felt different. This felt like a driver completely operating on another level while the rest of the field was just trying to survive behind him. And now the question everybody in the garage is asking is suddenly becoming very real. What happens if SVG figures out the ovals too? Because here's the scary part. He's already untouchable when NASCAR turns left and right. But if he becomes even just good on the ovals, we might be watching the beginning of something this sport has never seen before. And stick with me, because this story goes way deeper than just Watkins Glen. This is about Trackhouse Racing, the playoff bubble, NASCAR's new chase format, Justin Marks' long-term vision, and honestly, whether the rest of the Cup garage is running out of time to stop Shane van Gisbergen before this thing becomes a dynasty. And hey, real quick, if you are a true NASCAR fan like me, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe to the channel. NASCAR Nation news is just getting started. We are pushing for our next subscriber milestone, and it's all about real talk from fans who live this sport every week. All right, let's get into it. So let's talk about what actually happened at Watkins Glen, because the final result honestly doesn't even tell the full story. SVG didn't just win this race, he embarrassed the field. This man gave up the lead with 24 laps to go, and then somehow drove from deep in the pack, made up 23 spots, erased nearly 30 seconds, and still drove away with the win like it was nothing. I'm just gonna say it straight, that's not normal. That's not a guy catching a lucky caution. That's not strategy. That is pure driving talent. And when Justin Marks says, we have a race car driver at a level that I don't think this sport has ever seen before on road courses, honestly, how do you even argue with that at this point? 6 wins in the last 7 road and street course races, 7 career Cup wins already, tied with Chase Elliott for the most active road course wins in the Cup Series. And remember, this all started when SVG shocked the world by winning his NASCAR debut in the Chicago street race 3 years ago. The first driver in 60 years to pull that off. At the time, some fans thought it was a cool Cinderella story, a one-time thing, a gimmick. But now, nobody's laughing anymore, because Shane van Gisbergen has officially become the guy everybody fears when the schedule hits a road course. But here's where this story gets really interesting. Despite dominating Watkins Glen, despite all the headlines, despite looking like one of the fastest drivers in the entire sport, SVG still is not safe for the playoffs. That's the crazy part. Under the old win and you're in system, this conversation would basically be over. Punch the ticket, lock him into the chase. Done. But NASCAR changed the rules. Now consistency matters more than ever, and suddenly SVG's biggest weakness is impossible to ignore: the ovals. The Watkins Glen win moved him up into the final provisional chase spot, but he's only 6 points ahead of Chase Briscoe and not exactly comfortable with 14 races left in the regular season. And look at what's left on the schedule. 12 ovals, 1 road course, 1 street course. That's it. So now the entire season comes down to one brutal question. Can Shane van Gisbergen survive NASCAR's bread and butter tracks long enough to make the playoffs? Because if we're being honest, there have been moments this year where SVG has looked completely lost on some of these intermediate ovals. Texas was a perfect example. While Trackhouse teammates showed flashes of speed, SVG qualified 30th and openly admitted he felt like he went backward. And honestly, I respect that. A lot of drivers would fake confidence. SVG doesn't do that. He flat out admits he still has a ton to learn. That's what makes this whole thing dangerous. He's this good already, and he still thinks he's figuring it out. Think about that for a second. Most rookies or crossover drivers come into NASCAR and struggle to adapt. SVG came in and instantly became the greatest road course weapon in the series. Now he's slowly learning tire management, dirty air, oval balance, restarts, long run speed, side drafting, all the stuff that takes years to master. And if those pieces ever fully click together, good luck, because the scary signs are already there. He mentioned having 4 top 15 finishes in the first 6 oval races earlier this season. That may not sound spectacular on paper, but for a guy still adapting to NASCAR's toughest tracks, that's progress. And you can feel the confidence building. SVG said he wants to earn his way in this year instead of relying on gimmicks or special circumstances. That tells you everything about his mindset. He doesn't want to be known as just a road course specialist anymore. He wants to become a legitimate weekly cup threat. Now let's shift over to Trackhouse Racing for a second, because this team is fascinating right now. On one hand, they've got arguably the most dominant road course driver in modern NASCAR sitting in one of their cars. On the other hand, the overall organization has struggled. Ross Chastain is sitting 19th in points. Connor Zilisch is way back in 32nd, and Justin Marks himself admitted the team's performance this year has been unacceptable. That's a strong word from an owner. But here's the thing, I actually think Trackhouse might be closer to a breakthrough than people realize. Marks hinted that Texas showed light at the end of the tunnel, and if they can finally bring consistent speed to the ovals, SVG immediately becomes one of the most dangerous drivers in the playoff picture. Because we already know what happens when he gets to a road course in the postseason. Everybody else is racing for second. And let me say something else that not enough people are talking about. SVG turning 37 doesn't feel like the end of his story. It feels like the beginning. Usually when NASCAR drivers hit that age, conversations start shifting toward decline. But SVG sounds like a guy who's just entering his prime mentally. He literally said he feels like he's learning more now than ever before and doesn't think he's slowing down at all. That mentality matters, especially because NASCAR is becoming more international, more technical, and more adaptable than it used to be. Drivers with experience across multiple racing disciplines are suddenly thriving, and SVG represents that evolution perfectly. Now, before we wrap up, we've got to talk about two other major storylines buried in this report. First, Project 91 is apparently not dead, and if you're a hardcore NASCAR fan, that should get your attention immediately. Justin Marks basically teased that there's more coming after the program went quiet following the 2025 Daytona 500. Remember, this is the same initiative that brought in SVG Kimi Räikkönen and Helio Castroneves. Project 91 changed NASCAR's global perception overnight. It made international stars actually want to try cup racing. And after what SVG has become, you better believe other world-class drivers are paying attention. So don't be surprised if Trackhouse has another massive crossover announcement cooking behind the scenes. And finally, quick shout out to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. getting that multi-year extension with Hayek Motorsports. Love him or hate him, Stenhouse has become one of the most unpredictable drivers in NASCAR. Some weeks he looks like a super speedway genius. Other weeks, absolute chaos follows him everywhere. But keeping stability inside that organization matters, especially in today's Cup Series where driver movement never stops. Now here's the big debate I want everybody to sound off on in the comments. If Shane van Gisbergen becomes even a top 10 oval racer, does he instantly become the most dangerous driver in NASCAR? Seriously, think about it. Because if a guy already owns the road courses this badly and then suddenly starts competing consistently everywhere else too, what exactly is the weakness? And another question, did NASCAR make the right move getting rid of the old win-and-in playoff format, or are we now risking a generational talent missing the chase despite winning races? Drop your thoughts below because I genuinely think this is one of the biggest storylines in NASCAR right now. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like this video, subscribe to NASCAR Nation News, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into the biggest stories in the sport. We've got a lot more coming, and trust me, this SVG story is far from over.